Hello, good evening. Hello.
Good evening, madam.
Right, okay. Now I need a small favor from you because by now that I actually have forgotten what I have done last time, up to which point that I have actually done it. Can you actually give me the last time what lecture, what's the topic I covered in educational technology? Are you, if you want to refer to your notes and see, it's okay, possible? Anyone of you? What did I do with you last time? Can you refer to your note or something and see? Because I can't actually remember.
Madam, we studied up to writing the lesson objectives, and that we finished that smart objectives, how to write.
Hmm. So we did Bloom's taxonomy as well.
Yeah, ma'am.
We finished that, no? Right. So then I have to actually talk to you about the PPP model and the 5E model.
Yeah,
Did I
madam.
do
We
that?
have to. No, we have to discuss.
Discuss. So components of a lesson plan, then writing lesson objectives up to that point I have done, no?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Today, actually, my lesson would be on teaching models. Okay, because when you want to write a lesson plan, you have to first decide what teaching model that you're going to follow, right? What teaching model that you're going to follow. So there are several teaching models which are commonly used in uh, education, right? So, out of the several models of teaching, I'm going to actually cover PPP model of teaching and 5E model of teaching. What are the two teaching models that I'm going to do with you? PPP model of teaching and 5E model of teaching. So, I will actually open my lecture note on PPP model of teaching. Right. Okay. I'm sharing the document. You can make your own notes. So today's discussion is on teaching models. You can make your own notes, right? Teaching models. What is a teaching model, right? A teaching model is like systematizing approaches, methods, and techniques and conducting a teaching session. So you have to systematize what approach, what method, what technique that you're going to use to teach that particular lesson and accordingly conduct the lesson. So it is actually for the novice teacher. Novice is that is new teachers. Okay. For the novice teachers, actually, it is a bit tiring it's a bit challenging for the novice teacher. Okay. It is bit tiring and it's bit challenging. So if the novice teachers need experience to actually develop their own lessons, they can actually use one of the models, teaching models available, one of the teaching models available, and they can conduct their lessons. It's like that. Now, suppose you're not very good in your sewing, you know how to stitch, you know how to use the machine, all that you know. But when it comes to sari jackets, it's a specialty. So you're not very good in that. But you can actually get somebody to do the sari jacket block. And then you use the block, keep it on the cloth, and then you cut the cloth and stitch it. That, of course, you can do. So using a teaching model is something like that for the novice teacher. You know something about teaching, its approaches, methods, and techniques, but you're still inexperienced, still inexperienced. So you need the kind of a model like the sari block, sari jacket block. You keep it on the cloth and cut the cloth. You actually use that teaching model and accordingly plan your teaching session. That's the purpose of actually teaching models. So there are several models very well known and recognized and commonly used. I will take two out of them. The several teaching models available, I will take two. One is the PPP model of teaching. The PPP model of teaching. PPP. And the other one is 5E model of teaching. So what are the two teaching models?
PPP
Five
model
A
and
model
5.
and 5A
The
teaching model.
5E teaching model. So we will first start with the PPP model. So we actually looked at the approaches, teacher-centered and student-centered, grounded on behaviorism and constructivism as learning theories, right? So if you take the PPP model of teaching, it is more or less based on or grounded on behaviorism. So you can make notes. Now we are looking at the PPP model of teaching. It is grounded on behaviorism as the learning theory. So you know what behaviorism is. Have we discussed behaviorism and constructivism? Yes. And based on behaviorism and constructivism, we discussed the two main approaches to teaching and learning, that is teacher-centered and student-centered. So you're quite okay with these two learning theories. So if you take the PPP model of teaching, it is grounded on behaviorism. So what are the features or elements of behaviorism as a learning theory? Learning is habit formation. Do it over and over and you can learn it. Repetition and drilling. Learner is passive. Teacher spoon feeds and get the learner to rote learn. Right? Teacher is authority and controlled practice of activities. Less freedom given to the students. Mistakes are not tolerated, believing that mistakes, if they actually do it over and over, they get fossilized. So they are the actually features of behaviorism. Can you remember all that?
Yes, madam.
Yeah, okay. So then presentation, practice and production, the PPP model is grounded on behaviorism as a learning theory. So learning is a mechanical process. It's habit formation. The learner is passive, listen and learn. Teacher spoon feeds the child. Errors are not tolerated, so control practice is given. So believing in that, you will use the PPP model to teach your lesson. If you believe in that behaviorism, you will use PPP, right? So the PPP model of teaching has three distinct stages. Three distinct stages. PPP model of teaching has three distinct stages: presentation, practice, and production. First stage of the lesson is the presentation stage. So while listening, you can make notes. The first P for presentation, second P for practice, and the third P for production. Okay? So if you take the presentation stage, the lesson begins with the presentation stage. There the teacher is very active. Teacher presents the lesson. Students are passive. Students listen and learn. They are at the desk, listen and learn. So teacher talk time, TTT. You can see where I'm taking the arrow. Teacher talk time during the presentation stage is very high. Teacher dominates, teacher explains, students are made to sit and listen and learn. So this is the presentation stage. Normally, in a 40-minute lesson, presentation stage is less than 10 minutes. Less than 10 minutes. Okay. So teacher is the active participant and students are made to be passive at the outset, at the beginning of the lesson, because teacher explains, students listen and learn. Okay. That is the first stage of the presentation, PPP model, the presentation stage or the phase. It is less than 10 minutes of the 40 minutes. Okay, then you go to the practice stage. That is a second stage, practice stage. During the practice stage, teacher talk time is reduced to 40% and student talk time is increased to 60%. Teacher talk time is reduced to 40% and student talk time is increased to 60%. That is practice stage. Out of the 40 minutes, more than 20 minutes are taken for the practice stage. And during this practice stage, teacher gets the learner to practice what they were taught by the teacher during the presentation stage. Teacher gets the learner to practice what they were taught during the presentation stage. But this practice is highly controlled. These practice activities given are very controlled. No freedom. Maybe multiple choice, filling the blank activities, then transformation activities. If it is an English lesson, positive sentence into negative sentence. Active sentence into passive sentence, you transform. If it is a mathematics one, what they were taught shapes. They were taught shapes by the teacher. So the teacher says, this is circle, this is the shape of a square. Like the teacher introduces, students listen and learn. Passive. And during the practice stage, teacher gets them to draw shapes and name them. Teacher gets them to sort the shapes into different categories. Like that, very controlled, highly controlled activities are given. Half of the class time, that is out of the 40 minutes, 20 minutes are taken for practice stage because behaviorism believes in practice, practice, practice. Rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. Then they learn. Okay, practice and rehearse and then they learn. So because of that, practice is very important, but it's controlled practice. You give them filling the blank, MCQs, transformation, matching, those kind of activities, right? That is why controlled practice. They are the students talk time is 60% and teacher talk time is 40%. Now the class is more or less of the students, right? Students are made to be a little bit active in the class during the practice stage. The last stage of the PPP model is production phase or the stage. The production stage, the remaining 10 minutes for the presentation, 10 minutes for the practice, 20 minutes. Out of the 40, there are another 10 minutes. That is for the production phase in the PPP model. So during the production stage, teacher talk time is less than 20% or very much limited. But student talk time is more than 80%. So students are very active during the production stage of the lesson. The teacher gets the students to master the knowledge that they actually learned, they were taught today. They now freely use that knowledge to do some activities in the class. If it is actually an English lesson, teacher presented simple present tense is form or base form. Teacher explained everything. And then teacher gives them practice activities highly controlled during the practice stage. Teacher gives them fill in the blank, underlining, matching, etc. And then during the production stage, teacher might ask them to write 5 sentences in simple present tense using S form or base form according to the grammar rule that they learn. So if it is mathematics, that teacher introduced the shapes, teacher got them to do some control activities using shapes, naming them, categorizing them like that. And then in the production stage, the teacher gets them to actually look at the shapes and identify the surfaces. What are the other elements of shapes? You have to have this number of surfaces. Then what are the others in mathematics? So going beyond the concepts. Now, if it is a science lesson, it is about photosynthesis. In the presentation stage, teacher explains everything about photosynthesis. In the second phase, practice stage, teacher gives them a paragraph uh, or words and definitions to match related to photosynthesis, then rearrange the process of photosynthesis, etc. Hello, now I'm connected. I was not connected because of that only I call. Then mama එකතු අරන් තියෙන lesson එකට Mr. Rishan. Hello? Hello? මට class එකට admit කරලා තිබුණේ. Now I'm admitted. Problem එක හරි. Okay. Right. Then uh then photosynthesis after explaining teacher tells, right? Now the process of photosynthesis, it's given here, but the sentences are jumbled. You have to rearrange. The terms of words and definitions of the process of photosynthesis is here, match them. They are highly controlled practice activities. But during the production phase, the teacher might ask them, right? Conduct an experiment on photosynthesis after going home, maybe, right? And then they will actually design an experiment and they will conduct it and bring the results to the class next day or after some time, depending on the nature of the experiment. That is the production stage. Some freedom is given. What they were taught, that they can actually use it and do something more than what they learned. That is the production stage. So there the student participation is very high. It's about more than 80%, and teacher actually slowly kind of moves away from the lesson, giving freedom to students, and teacher talk time is less than 20%. So this is actually the PPP model of teaching. So I have a small activity here. Select a suitable lesson and discuss how you will conduct the lesson adapting the PPP model of teaching. I will give you an example from uh, English language classroom. You have to actually give me an example from some other subject. If you take English language, so you have to actually always, we think of grammar, no. You have actually a picture description as a writing task. Picture description as a writing task. That's the lesson today. So during the presentation stage, teacher explains, right? You're supposed to do a picture description. It's a writing task. In doing a picture description, you have to use present continuous tense. Present continuous tense is formed by using is, am, and ing form. And then you have to use the prepositions of place and time. Like that, you will actually explain it to them how to do that. Then teacher talks, students listen. And teacher talk time is 80%, student talk time is 20%. Less than 10 minutes of the 40 minutes are taken. Then you go to the practice stage. They are in the practice stage. Teacher gives them practice activities, highly controlled. Less freedom for the students to use their own language. So now you have taught them how to do that. So you give them a model writing. A model is given. They have to replace words and phrases and write a similar description, right? There are two pictures. So one picture is described. So you look at the model given and then you look at the second picture and accordingly you change some words and phrases and take the first one as a model and do the model right. Highly controlled, no room for uh, mistakes. And another activity will be you describe the picture and it's a closed passage. Every fifth word is deleted. Every fifth word is deleted. So you get the students to complete the picture description by thinking of the every fifth word deleted. That is also highly controlled. It's a picture description, but students are not given 100% freedom. And then out of the 40 minutes, more than 20 minutes are used for this controlled practice in PPP. Practice makes you perfect. And practice activities make you accurate, right? About the knowledge. So half of the class time is spent on practice, but it's highly controlled. So they say teacher involvement, teacher talk time is 40%. Student involvement, student talk time is 60%. Now the remaining 10 minutes, the PPP model has the production stage. During the production stage, teacher gets the students to what they learn to use it in practical way, in a productive activity, to do something by using what they learn. So they learn how to do a picture description. Now they are going to write their own picture description. This time it is not actually highly controlled, getting them to fill in the blanks or replace words and phrases. They will actually describe the picture, writing or speaking on their own. Maybe only picture is provided. So that is high, freedom is given. Now not the accuracy that is focused, but fluency. That is the PPP model of lesson structure. So suppose if it is some other subject, can you think of an example for the three phases of the PPP model? Can you? There are teachers from other subjects as well. Teachers of other subjects. Can you? Nobody wants to? You can give it a try, then I can actually help you. Is there anybody?
Madam?
Yeah.
Madam, I'm teaching English.
Yeah, okay.
Uh,
Still it's okay.
okay. I just thought if teaching this, that, those, and these,
Yeah.
while teaching
Go ahead.
those, in presentation, we can, through pictures, we can say the usage of this, that, and those, and these. And
You are going to explain it to the students.
yeah.
Mhm.
And then through fill in the blank activities, we can say the students to practice in that
Yeah.
usage. And then finally, we can say the students to form sentences using those, this, that, those, and this.
Yeah, their own sentences. Am I right?
Yeah.
What is important is that you have to actually talk about TTT, teacher talk time, and to STT, student talk time, and how much of time is allocated, whether freedom is given, whether freedom is controlled. Those are
Okay,
you have
while
to actually, yeah.
yeah, while we are teaching, we can the teaching time may be 80% teacher timing, and then while students are practicing through the fill in the blank activities, the freedom is not given much. And then
Yeah.
while the uh, students are writing those sentences, the freedom is given to the students to write their sentences.
Very good. Actually speaking, you actually correctly said that. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm trying to actually show you a science lesson using the PPP model. So that is another example from by you. So let's see how it can be used in science class. No. That is not something that I'm looking for. Give me a second. Right. Okay. Can you think of another example not from English language? Okay. There are teachers of other subjects as well, right? Yeah, please.
When we take a mixed subject,
Uh-huh.
we take circle subject. For the 10 minutes presentation stage, we can introduce them by taking the circular object in the environment and introduce them about the circle and give some examples from the environment about the circular object. For the next, for the practice, we can give the exercises related to that. That means we can give list of items and we can tell to find out the circular object from that. And also we can do some other exercise that means drawn picture by the teacher, tell them to select the circular object.
Okay.
For the last time, that means for the production, we can give them chance to so a circular design if they wish, that means the creativity to like this.
Okay. I actually agree with you to a certain extent, right? Right. I'm actually trying to get a kind of a proper lesson plan in mathematics, but it's very hard to find. There are no free versions available. So it's all right because your example is quite okay. So because of that, now you actually learn something about the PPP model of teaching. So you will be able to write a short note if you want on PPP model of teaching, right? Because you have to talk about teacher talk, the three stages: teacher talk time, student talk time, one criteria. Second one, how much of class time? How much of class time? Presentation stage 1/4, 10 minutes, less than 10 minutes. Practice stage, more than half of the class time, 20 minutes out of 40. And the production stage, again, less than 10 minutes. And then you have to talk about whether it's controlled practice or free of practice given, right? Then you have to talk about what kind of activities, examples of activities: rearrangement, matching, transformation, fill in the blanks in the practice stage. But when it comes to production stage, the students have to actually give their own answers. Give their own answers. So that is the PPP model of teaching, grounded on behaviorism as the learning theory. So now we will have a look at uh, 5E model of teaching, another teaching model. 5E model of teaching. Have you ever heard of this and learned this 5E model of teaching? Because you all are actually from colleges of education, some of you are. Have you done the 5E model of teaching before? Right. So this is the second model of teaching. You can take down notes. The 5E model of teaching. So the 5E model of teaching is grounded on constructivism. You know what constructivism is? Constructivism is actually a learning theory. And according to constructivism, learning is trial and error learning. Learning refers to discovery learning. Learning refers to do it and learn. So the learner is very active in the class from the very beginning. The teacher's role is to bring tasks or activities to the class for the learner to do it and learn and discover new knowledge that they are supposed to learn. So teacher doesn't spoon feed. Teacher doesn't explain everything. Instead, students are given activities. By doing those activities, the students discover new knowledge. So the students are very active participants. As they are very active participants, as they do it and learn, their learning is maximized. According to Dale's cone of learning, it is more than 80% of learning happens when you get the students to do it and learn. So the teacher's task is bring tasks to the class, bring activities to the class, and get them to do the activities. By doing activities, they have to actually discover new knowledge. That is actually what the 5E model is grounded on. That is grounded on constructivism. So if you believe in that, today in my lesson, I want my students to learn it by themselves, learn it by doing it, learn it through trial and error. So you will actually use the 5E model. So some other day you might decide on the PPP model. This is hard facts. This is difficult topic. So I have to explain it first to the students. I will get the students to engage in control practice and then some freedom given. So you will decide on the PPP model of teaching that day. But this is of course interesting for the learners to actually do it on their own. This is not very complex also. So I actually will ground this on constructivism and get the learners to try it out on their own, then you will actually use the 5E model of teaching. Okay. So if you actually use the 5E model of teaching, your lesson is conducted in 5 stages. Your lesson is conducted in 5 stages. What are those 5 stages of the 5E model? The first E is for engagement. The first E stands for engagement. The second E stands for exploration. Third E for explanation. Fourth E for elaboration. And the fifth E for evaluation. Those are the 5 stages of the 5E model. Each stage begins with an E, so that is why it's 5E. Engagement, exploration, explanation, elaboration, and evaluation. Are you all okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So then let's see what happens in each and every stage. How it is conducted in each and every stage. That is what we are going to look at. Now, this is the 5E model grounded on constructivism. So students do it and learn. Students discover new knowledge. They are active participants from the very beginning of the lesson. Teacher's role is a facilitator. Teacher brings activities to the class and get the students to work in groups and pairs, cooperative learning, and discover new knowledge. You are a guide in the class. Okay. So what are the 5 stages? Engagement, exploration, explanation, elaboration, and evaluation. So let's take the first stage, engagement activity. Engagement activity. Okay. If you take the engagement stage, this is all, you have to be very clear, all activity based. You get the students to do activities and learn. That is the 5E model constructivism. In the PPP model, the presentation stage, teacher explains everything. Students are passive learners. But here in the 5E model, no teacher explanations at the outset. It's only teacher discussions, but not at the beginning of the lesson as well. Right? So engagement stage, teacher has an activity. For the exploration stage, teacher has an activity. For the elaboration stage, teacher has an activity. So you get them to do an activity and explore the new knowledge. It is facilitated through group work, pair work. So they are not doing it on their own. They have their friends with them. So they can share their knowledge and actually discover new knowledge. You also are there, and that is to guide them. That is how it happens. So the 5E model has all activities in the class. 5E model has all activities in the class. So teacher can't walk into the classroom empty-handed and go on explaining in the 5E model, right? Instead, teacher has to plan the lessons beforehand, walk into the class with activities prepared for them. So it's challenging for the teacher, okay? But this is how it happens in the 5E model. Now we are looking at the engagement stage. Okay. Now you can write in your paper, first E for engagement. This is important elements of the engagement stage. The main purpose of engagement stage or the activity given during the engagement stage is to get the learner to recall prior knowledge. You have to write it down. Recall prior knowledge. Recall prior knowledge. Because constructivists believe that students are not empty vessels. They have their prior knowledge, existing knowledge. They have the knowledge of the language. They have the knowledge of the world. They have experiences. So they are not empty vessels. So the existing knowledge or the prior knowledge. I repeat, existing knowledge or the prior knowledge the students have, which is relevant to discover the new knowledge you present. Now you are going to present new knowledge. They have to discover it in the 5E model. So what is relevant for the discovery of new knowledge? That prior knowledge or the existing knowledge that they already have, which is relevant and useful in the discovery of the new knowledge. It is recalled in the engagement stage. That is the task is about. So the teacher comes prepared with a task for the engagement stage that the students actually already know that. Students already know it. But that knowledge is useful in the discovery of the new knowledge that you are going to present today. So because of that, through the activity, engagement activity, you are going to get the learner to recall that prior knowledge that they have. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yeah, ma'am.
I will give an example. If it is an English lesson, today what you want them to discover is simple present tense, S form or base form. It's a grade 6 class. So you as a teacher, you're using the 5E model. You have to actually think of an engagement activity. In that engagement activity, the prior knowledge or the existing knowledge the students have, which is very useful in today's discovery, S form and base form, is recalled through the engagement activity. So you can know that they already know about the rules of forming the singular form of the verb, rules of forming the S form of the verb. Sometimes you cut YE and add IES. Sometimes you just add S. Sometimes you add ES. Sometimes you add, you cut F and add V. That is for nouns. Like that, there are several rules for forming the S form. So they already know it. But in the discovery of today's knowledge, in doing today's activities, they need that knowledge. So because of that, you give them a recalling activity at the end as the engagement activity. Recalling the prior knowledge as the engagement activity. Normally, an engagement activity is a whole class activity. Whole class means you get anybody to actually do the activity as a class, whole class. You're not going to group them. It's not individual also. If they like, they can do the activity, come to board and come in front of class like that. That is whole class activity. So you can actually take a kind of a,
Excuse me, madam.
yeah,
Am I sharing the screen
yeah,
about 5E method?
yes, okay. It's not being
But
shared, right? Okay.
yeah.
Now, yes,
Okay.
now you can see, right?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we are still in the engagement activity. So you are recalling prior knowledge that the students possess, which is relevant to the discovery of the new knowledge. So in the simple present tense, they already know the rules of forming the singular verb. So it is recalled through a whole class activity. Through a whole class activity. For that, you can actually bring a bristle board. There you have 2 columns or several columns. So there are verb cards in a box. So they can pick a verb and then paste it in the correct column of the S form. If it is just S added, they paste it in the column S. Play, plays. If it is cut Y and add IES, they will actually fly, flies. So they will pick the verb fly and go and paste it in the cut Y and IES box. Like that, you get them to do it, and they will willingly do that, because something that they already know. So to start from something that they already know, which is helpful in today's learning as well, is highly motivating. Is highly motivating. You actually liberate the learner from the seat and get them to actually be active participants of the lesson at the outset from the beginning itself. So they are the purposes of the engagement activity. So I will get you to look at, now I'm not a science person, I'm not a maths person, but anyway, I will get you to look at a history lesson. You're a history teacher. So today it's about kings of Sri Lanka, right? And it's a series of lessons. So they all have already learned about the kings from the Anuradhapura era. They already have learned. So today it's one of the kings. So there are common features of kings of Anuradhapura era. So then it's already taught to them. So you can actually do an engagement activity based on common features of Anuradhapura era's ruling, right? And then they already know it. It's a whole class activity. And they are motivated because you started with something that they all know and making them active participants, recalling the prior knowledge that they have, which is useful in the understanding of today's lesson. So normally you take 1/4, less than 1/4 of the class time for this. Less than 1/4 of the class time. In a 40-minute lesson, it's less than 10 minutes. Are you okay? Are you okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Then we go to the second stage of the 5E model. What is the second stage of the 5E model?
Explore.
Exploration. Exploration stage. Now, during the exploration stage, students are grouped. Students do the act, because always in the 5E model, all activities given, because teacher doesn't explain anything. Teacher gets the students to do activities and discover. That is how it happens. No, so teacher has lots of activities. So engagement activity done. So now the exploration activity. In the exploration activity, the teacher introduces the new knowledge that they are supposed to learn, right? So that activity is actually the new knowledge that they have to discover. So you have to prepare an activity, right? You have to prepare an activity and get the learner to do the activity and discover new knowledge. It is challenging for the learner. Because of that, you actually organize group work, cooperative learning in the class, right? So there is more than one head, so they can share their knowledge. So the exploration is giving them an activity to explore the new knowledge in groups, in cooperative learning environment. I will give you, no, what is the class time? How much of class time is spent? It is more than half of the class time. More than half of the class time is spent on exploration. More than half of the class time, because it's challenging, something that they don't know, but they are going to actually do something and discover it. Why do we get them to do like that? Because when they do it and learn, remembering is more than 80% according to the Dale's cone. Have I done Dale's cone with you? I ask you a question. Have I done Dale's cone with you?
No, ma'am.
Can't be, because in doing methods, approaches, and techniques, but I will show you once this discussion is done, okay? According to Dale's code, when you get the learner to do it and learn, they learn, they remember 80% of the lesson, okay? 80% of the lesson. So that is why we get them to discover, do it and learn. So teacher brings them an activity. So they have to do the activity and explore the new knowledge and discover the new knowledge. You facilitate it by putting them into groups, getting them to get into the cooperative learning environment so they can share their knowledge, right? So we'll get that example. We'll get that example, the kings in the history lesson. So today you want them to actually learn about a particular king. So in the history textbook, there is a note on that particular king. So what do the teachers do normally? They go to the class, it's there in the textbook. Teacher goes on telling the same thing again to the students and I made the students to be passive listeners. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but instead of that, the teacher can prepare an activity. The teacher can tell them, right, you have to form groups. And in your textbook, page 13, there is a full page article on this king. Read it and transfer information into the grid that I'm giving you. In that grid, you have the name of the king, the period of the king, name of the father of the king, mother, right? And his siblings, what he actually created, like that important information about the king that they read in the passage, they have to transfer that information into the grid. So you're not going to talk about and explain it because they can read and understand. So you're going to get them to be in groups, read the passage, read the text on that particular king, and transfer that information into a grid. While doing that, they will learn about the king on their own. You don't have to tell them because they can read and transfer that information into a grid and then they actually focus on important information about the king while doing it, and it helps them to remember the important information because they do it and learn rather than just listening to the teacher's explanation. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it clear?
Yes,
If it
ma'am.
is, yeah, if it is not clear, you can ask me, right? Now, I will give you an example from the simple present tense classroom. So this is the exploration stage. So they don't know about when to use S form, when to use base form. So you're not going to explain it to them because listen and learn only 30% of remembering, but get them to do it and learn 80% of remembering. So you actually think of giving them an activity and explore it and then learn how to form the simple present tense using S form or base form. So for that, you can give them, you can ask them to listen to a audio record. And in that audio record, it is said, it's about my family. And it is said, my family loves gardening, right? My family loves gardening. My father uh, takes a lot of interest in uh, having a good home yard. Both my father and mother spend a lot of time doing gardening. My siblings help them with gardening. I also help my father and mother in gardening. Like that, S form and base form, how it is used. So they listen to the audio. It's about my family, how we spend our leisure. So there you can see S form and base form of simple present tense is used vehemently. So just by playing it, they will not focus on that. So you have to give them a small activity. So you can tell them, listen to the audio and match A and B. Match A and B. So A part, the doer, my mother, my parents, my siblings, I, like that. And then B part, the rest of the sentence, the predicate. So they listen and match. I help my mother and father in God. My siblings also help. එතර I එකත් help, my siblings plural noun එකත් help. They spend a lot of time in gardening. So they can spend. My brother likes watering the plants. And my brother singular noun is. So you get them to listen and match. That is actually getting them to do an activity and discover. So they will still not discover. Then you can ask them, give them another activity. Look at what is matched and then separate them into two columns. What verb, S form of the verb is taken by what nouns and pronouns. Base form of the verb is taken by what nouns and pronouns. Now they look at the completed matching exercise. I has taken base form. They have taken base form. My siblings plural noun, base form. My brother singular noun, S form. She, S form. Like that, they actually separate them. Another activity. They themselves do it. You're getting them to notice the new knowledge by getting them to do an activity, by listening. Now, in this example, listen and tell. So another example, it's a science lesson. So in this science lesson, they have to learn the life cycle of the butterfly. Life cycle of the butterfly, that is the new knowledge. That's the new knowledge. So as it's the new knowledge, you will actually show them a video. And with the video, you give them illustration, incomplete. So they watch the video and complete the illustration about the life cycle of the butterfly. So you're not going to explain it. Yeah, they are not made to listen and learn. Instead, they watch and they complete the activity and they learn. So they are consciously doing something and learning new knowledge on their own. Are you okay with the examples? Are you okay with the examples?
Yeah, ma'am. Ma'am, excuse me.
Yeah.
I need to share this. Don't know whether it's correct. In the
Yeah.
exploration stage, teacher is teaching going to teach different shapes of leaves.
Yeah.
And in the exploration stage, the students are going to the home, their school garden. They are collecting different shapes of leaves. Is it okay?
Collecting is not enough. So they are not going to learn anything out of it now.
Yeah.
So that is only the material. So what do you want them to learn by actually looking at the different shapes of leaves? What do you want them to learn?
The veins.
Yeah. Then
About the types of plants.
Yeah. So then you have to actually give them a small activity based on that. They look at the leaves becomes the material. එතන නිකන් ඒක දිහා බැලුවා කියලා එතන you have to explain it again. It's no point. So you have to give them an activity, and while doing the activity, they come to know what are the characteristics, what are the different shapes, how many veins and all that they come to know. So for that, you have to give them an activity.
Yeah, by giving a chart, we can ask them to collect the related information
Definitely, yes.
starting.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
ma'am.
they are not doing it individually because it's challenging,
Yeah, it's
because
a
it's
group,
something
like
new.
group.
So you have to always give them group work,
Yeah,
right?
okay, okay. Understood.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is it. Good. So I like that you're talking. It's actually then interaction is there, otherwise boring, no? Right? So thank you. Then we go to the third stage, explain, explanation. Now, explanation is now you get them to actually discover new knowledge. So they do activities and they have actually answers to the activities. They've done it. So always in the 5E model, explanation stage means you have to get them to explain what they discovered. You have to get the learner to explain what they discovered. So the same example of kings. Read the text and complete the grid, and then they focus on the important information. So you can get them to present it to the class. King Datusena was born in this place, when this place, ruled during this place. Uh, who is his father, who was his mother, who was his siblings, like that. They actually present it to the class. They explain it to the class. And teacher is there to lead a discussion and give feedback, right? And each and every group, maybe the first 2 points by group 1, second 3 and 4 by group 2, like that. You have to manage class time, right? Like that, you have to get them to explain what they discovered and lead a discussion and give them feedback for them to know whether it's right or wrong. So if you take the example of life cycle of the butterfly by watching a video, so you can actually get them to explain what is the first step, what is the second step, what is the third step, like that. So if they have completed the illustration, they come in front of the class as a group, show the illustration and see this is how it is completed. So it helps them to actually keep things in mind. It helps them to actually explain what they discovered, and it is actually motivated learning. Explain is that. In the example of simple present tense, getting them to listen to the audio, my family, what we do in our leisure, and the answers. So the sentences matched A and B, they present it to the class. Then they say what actually nouns and pronouns takes take S form, what nouns and what pronouns take base form, and then teacher and the students lead a discussion about it, give feedback, and then they come to know, this is the new knowledge, it is correct, and this is it should be. That is the explanation stage. So a lot of student participation than the teacher telling everything to the students. That is explanation. Are you okay? Are you okay? Is it clear?
Okay then.
Yeah. Then you go to extend or elaboration. Extend or elaboration. Extend or elaboration. In the elaboration stage, the teacher gets the students to use what they discovered, the new knowledge, in a very productive, in another activity, to do another activity, right? They have learned something new today. They can use that new knowledge and do something more than what they learned. Applying the new knowledge that they learned and doing an activity is extension or elaboration. Normally, the remaining 10 minutes are used for the extension or the elaboration, right? They are actually the examples. They are also, it is group work because they can't actually do it on their own. It's challenging. But they have learned the new knowledge. Now they are going to apply it and do something more. The examples. Now they learned about King Datusena in history. They themselves read it and transfer the information into a grid and read it to the class, then they are thorough now. So you're going to actually get them to do a poster on King Datusena. Right? They know information about King Datusena. Though they come and do a presentation on King Datusena. If not, they do a poster on King Datusena. Okay? That is an elaboration activity. They are using the new knowledge that they learn to do a presentation or to do a poster. Right? If you take that life cycle of the butterfly, after watching a video, they complete an illustration and present it to the class. Now you can actually ask them to act it out in the class. Act out the life cycle of the butterfly. If not, do a poster on the life cycle of the butterfly. Let them come and speak about the life cycle of the butterfly. So that is actually helps them transferring information into the long-term memory, retention. They are dabbling with the new information more, right? So in the example of listening to the audio for simple present tense S form or base form, now you can ask them, right? Speak 5 sentences about your family and how you spend your leisure. So if not, it's a group work. So you can't actually get them to talk about one family. So you can actually give them some language cues. It's about Pereira's family and how they spend their leisure. So they use the cues and they actually talk about Pereira's family and how they spend the leisure using S form and the base form appropriately. And they work in a group. They are using what they discovered with these pronouns and nouns. It's the base form. With these pronouns and nouns, it's the S form. They apply it and they actually do the speaking activity. Is it okay? Because these extension activities or elaboration activities transfer the new knowledge that they discovered into the long-term memory for retention. Right? So they actually keep it in mind. And they will remember it. They will not forget it. And they can apply some new knowledge and do something more. That's the idea. And then come to the evaluation stage. Evaluation is all throughout the lesson, not at the end of the lesson. As it happened, engagement first, and then the exploration next, and then the exploration and elaboration. No. Evaluation, of course, all throughout the lesson. Evaluation doesn't mean that you give them a written examination test and see whether they'll have learned it or not. Instead, you observe them, you ask them questions, you see how they are doing their activities and judge. Come to an assessment whether they have learned it or not. Okay? By asking a few questions, by looking at what they are doing, by watching how they are actually presenting, that you assess whether they have learned what they are supposed to learn. It happens all throughout the lesson, not only at the end of the lesson. That's about the evaluation. And here you can see constructivism, 5E model grounded on the constructivism, and the 5 stages of the 5E model, and what purposes and what special characteristics are there in the 5E model of teaching. And I gave you examples from history, science, and English. Is there anyone who can give an example from some other subject or any other subject that you actually would like to talk about? What? Any example of a 5E model teaching? No? I'm waiting for you to respond. I think you all can talk. Is anybody to do that? No? Say. और प्रश्न नहीं. Hello, I'm trying to locate a 5E model lesson plan. In the meantime, can you actually talk about a lesson? I will help you to actually, if you're not doing right. Hello. At least talk about the features of 5E model. Hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm. Okay. So I will actually find it next time because it's difficult for me to locate. Okay, I think I could locate it. Killer, let's see. Not today. Right. We'll actually look at another example next day. Amina Falil. Right. So then we discuss about the 5E model. We discuss about the PPP model. So there are two extremes. PPP model grounded on the behaviorism as a learning theory. 5E model grounded on constructivism as a learning theory. So as I told you that you said that I have not done Dale's cone of learning. Dale's cone of learning with you. So I'm quite sure I have discussed it before, Kiela, but I will actually explain it again. So let's see, I'm opening this Edgar Dale's cone of learning and remembering. Okay. So let me share it with you first. So you can take down notes, Edgar Dale's cone of learning. Okay. Edgar Dale's, can you see what I'm sharing?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So here, this is Edgar Dale, D-A-L-E. Now you can see Dale's cone of experience or learning or remembering. Dale's cone of experience or learning or remembering, right? Edgar Dale actually proposes this. Edgar Dale says, if you get your students to read only, they will learn only 10% of what they read. If you get your students to read something in the class, they will remember, they will learn only 10% of what they read. If you get your students to listen to you, hear, right? You talk and the students just listen. Your students will remember only 20% of what they hear. Only 20% of what they hear is remembered by them. So most of the time teachers talk, you get the students to hear or listen and they learn only 20% of what you tell them. So if you see something, if they see something, you show them visuals, you show them videos and all that. If you see them visuals and realia, they remember 30% only of what they actually see. But if you get them to actually watch a movie or a video, you get them to see and hear both. If they see and hear both, they remember 50% of what they okay. Now, if you get them to actually watch a movie, watch a video, you get them to see and hear. If they see and hear, they remember only 50% of what they actually see and hear. But if you get them to say something, you get them to explain, you get them to discuss, you get them to give a talk, you get them to do a presentation. If you get them to say something, they remember 70% of what they actually, 70% of what they say. So if you actually get them to say and do something, 90% of what we say and do. So in the 5E model that you get them to explain, you get them to do the activity and then explain. So according to Edgar Dale, they remember 90% of what they say and do. So if you take the history lesson, if the teacher explains and students just listen, they will remember only 20%. But if you get the learner to read the text and then do the activity, transfer of information, and then explain it to the class, they remember 90% of what they say. Is it okay? Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah, okay. That is it. So that is why this difference between behaviorism and constructivism. But they have their own advantages, they have their own disadvantages. We have not said 100% no to PPP. We have not actually accepted 5E model 100%. Instead, actually, we actually select which is appropriate. We select which is appropriate. So what are the advantages? What are the disadvantages of the PPP model and the 5E model? So what are the advantages? So what are the advantages? What are the disadvantages of PPP model and 5E model? So that is what we are going to discuss. So I will take them actually together because the advantages of PPP model is a disadvantage of 5E model because they are two extremes. Disadvantage of PPP model is an advantage of the 5E model. So if you take the PPP model, the advantage is it suits the young learner, the immature learner. They need first the explanation and then actually doing control practice and then doing some peer activities. So with the immature learners, PPP model is very effective. It is difficult, that is a disadvantage of 5E model. It is very difficult to actually conduct a lesson using 5E model if your learners are very immature. They actually lack much knowledge, prior knowledge and all that. Okay? That is one advantage and disadvantages of the two models. The other thing is, if you use the 5E model, there is more learning because they do and say and then more learning. But in the PPP model, the disadvantage is the learners are passive, they listen, they read and do something. The learning is very less. Okay? But at the same time, if you use the 5E model and get the learner to do activities and find knowledge on their own, it is time consuming. It's a disadvantage of the 5E model. But when it comes to the PPP model, the teacher explains and can save more time. So you have limited time to cover a vast area. You will go for the PPP, not 5E model, though 5E model helps remembering more. Right? So this is it. And teacher preparation. Which model needs a lot of preparation? Which model needs less preparation when it comes to teacher?
Model needs
Uh-uh.
5E model
Please stop.
PP has, I think, more preparation, teacher preparation.
Rather. Now, if it is PPP model, teacher can just walk into the class, teacher knows the knowledge, and it can be explained without any preparation. Even if you are not ready for the lesson, you can do that. But 5E model, you can't do that. You have to actually prepare, find materials, prepare activities, and bring them to the class and plan it. Am I right? So it's challenging for the teacher when you have to actually use the 5E model. It needs a lot of preparation. Okay. Now, if it is PPP model, teacher has knowledge. Teacher walks into the class, what she knows, teacher explains. That is how it happens all the time. No preparation at all. But if you want to actually get the learners to do activities and discover knowledge, you have to actually think of prior knowledge to be recalled and what kind of engagement activity, then what kind of materials to use for the exploration and what kind of activities to be used for them to actually notice the new information. And all these are actually challenging for the teacher. It needs a lot of preparation. You can't just walk into the classroom and do 5E model. Okay, right. So then 5E model, the students are very active learners, so highly motivating and more learning. But PPP model, at the outset, the learners are very passive and they lose interest and they are made demotivated to learn. Okay, that is a disadvantage of PPP model. PPP model is time saving, 5E model is time consuming. So you can see whether it's an advantage or a disadvantage. So this is what, if you are to actually write about the advantages and disadvantages of the two models of teaching. Are you okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay then. Then we have some more time, about 20 minutes more. So we can get into another topic, okay? Actually, it's really good if I could locate the sample lesson plans, but actually I can't find it. Let me give it a try one more time because it's good before you forget that if I can show you. I know it's in my pen. That's the thing, okay? So let me actually open this. Okay. Okay, I think I could locate it. Kila, give me a second. No, actually, I can't find it now, right now. Right. I will show you a sample model, 5E model lesson next day. Okay, I really can't locate it. I do not know where I have actually saved. So we will move on to another topic then. No, it's not going to work. Components of lesson plan. I will actually teach you the components of lesson plans. So you can now actually take it down, right? Components of a lesson plan. In components of lesson plan, you have these components. Definitely, if you are writing a lesson plan, these components should be incorporated into it. What are they? First one, you can see what I'm sharing. First one, I will show you samples of 5E model, okay? Next day. So, developing a lesson plan is the topic now. If you take planning a lesson, first step is to actually decide the lesson objectives. So you know you have to cover this content from the syllabus. So you look at the lesson or the content in the textbook. So first step of lesson planning is writing specific objectives of that lesson. And we have done it, writing specific objectives. The 3H, head, heart, and hand, for all the 3 domains, cognitive, affective, and psychomotor, that you have to write lesson objectives. That is the first step. Now you have a content to be covered in that particular lesson. Look at that and then you write the lesson objectives. Then you know, you in the lesson plan, you give the title of the lesson. You give the title of the lesson. You have to mention the grade or the class. You have to actually mention the time required to complete the lesson. Is it 40 minutes? It is 80 minutes, like that. Okay. So then you write the learning outcomes. Learning outcomes is the specific objectives for the lesson. You write it relating it to the 3 domains. And then you have to actually mention what teaching materials are used. What teaching materials are used. That is the next component. What are the teaching materials you use? So when you actually use teaching materials, you have to number them. Now, if it is the 5E model, for the engagement activity, what is the material you're going to use? So in the simple present tense example, I told you a bristle board having boxes or columns for different S-form grammar rules. And you need some other materials, that is verbs, to put into a box. So they pick a verb and then go and paste it in the correct column of the bristle board. So there are materials needed. So it is used as the first activity for the engagement. So you say it's 1.1 and 1.2. And then in the exploration activity of the same simple present, you have an audio clip that is 2.1 material because it's the activity 2. And then you have 2 activities there, match A and B. It is 2.2. Then you have another one, match the nouns and pronouns with S form and base form. That is another activity, 2.3. So you have to actually mention them as materials and give them after the lesson plan as annexures. So next day, definitely I will show you that. Okay. And then you have to actually then write the steps of the lesson or the sequence of events. What happens first, what happens next, what happens after that. You call it steps of the lesson. And then you have to actually write how you're going to assess them. How you're going to assess them. So assessment criteria. And then you have to add another one. It is newest and latest, reflection. After completing the lesson, you have to write the reflection, whether your lesson was successful or not. And now, of course, after writing the lesson plan also, you have to write a reflection why you developed this lesson like this. You have to write a reflection. And then once the lesson is completed, you have to write a reflection for, that is, if you are doing it for future, in the future, what kind of changes that you will bring about. Because of that, you reflect on good and bad about the lesson after conducting it. So I actually give me a second. Talk to you about the components of a lesson plan. Make sure that these components are there when you write the lesson plan. Normally, for the lesson plans, you have formats. For the lesson plans, you have formats. But remember, there is no the format as well. As far as that you can incorporate these components into the lesson plan, it's going to be a proper template. But the important thing is that you have to actually put all these important components into the lesson plan. Okay, but I will show you an accepted, NIE accepted, National Institute of Education accepted lesson plan. I will show you next day. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm very sorry I can't look at my lesson plans. I tried again, thinking that it's going to be really good if I can show you one, but it's not. No, no, no. Okay, that is actually going to be next day writing a lesson plan. So next day I will show you a lesson plan written using the 5E model. And I will actually get you to look at the structure of or a template of writing lesson plans. I will use the standardized one, the NIE one, because in schools, of course, sometimes you use only a simplified lesson plan. So can I ask you, do you write lesson plans in school? Is it a must?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
So what's the
yes.
template that you use? Is it are these components are incorporated into the lesson plan? I told you the time needed, whether it's 40 minutes or 80 minutes, the title of the lesson. Likewise, is it incorporated?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Many of them are included.
Yeah, that is it. So I'm going to actually share the NIE team, Teacher's Instructional Manual. And there you can see a standardized template for a lesson plan. Okay. So it's being shared. Can you see the grade 7 team?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So I will show you a template of a lesson plan. Okay. Right. You can see here. This is a lesson plan. Engage in active listening and response appropriately. What is the competency level? Number of periods. Expected learning outcomes. right? So objectives. So this is not a proper one. This is actually an explanation to the teacher, no? So because of that, we can't actually take it as a proper one. So next day is my last day of your lectures. So I will actually show you how to write a lesson plan incorporating these components, and how to actually attach the materials as annexures. So that will be discussed with you next time. So if you are to actually know what we discuss in this uh, uh, right now, Gayani has said, I have not given you an assignment. Am I right? Have I given you an assignment?
No, ma'am.
Yeah. So next day, last day, I will actually set you an assignment also. And I will show you how to do the assignment also. And I will set the assignment. It will be on the flipped method or jigsaw method. So flipped method and jigsaw method I have done. But I have to actually set an assignment and show you how to do that. That presentation is not this subject. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am. It's
Yeah.
inside
So
the
those who could not, you have to actually speak to the campus. So I'm given a timetable there. Didn't you receive the timetable? Have you received your timetable? There I can see 25th of May is for educational psychology presentation. I don't know
Yes.
how many of you are there. If it is 2 hours, we can manage maximum 15 of you, right? Now see, in the class, we have about 20. But that day, I didn't know. There are about 60 then, no? So because of that, actually, I will actually get you to now in the timetable. For the presentation, it's 25th of May. So I will actually do the presentation. Actually, 15 of you will be able to present if we do not waste time in between, right? So if it is only 15, yes, I can manage. So it's the 25th of May. So if you have more than 15 people, then again, there will be some more people remaining. That, of course, I'm unaware of it. Okay. Always deal with the campus regarding this. So next class is 18. It's our last class. I have to show you how to write a lesson plan. I will definitely show you 1 or 2 lesson plans and will get you to write one. But I will introduce you the assignment based on flip method or jigsaw method and give you all the instructions for the assignment as well. And we'll make it the last class and give you the summary of all the work that we have done as well. Then you can be prepared for the exam. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Have you not got this timetable from the campus?
We got the timetable, ma'am.
So there you have been given only the 25th. So 25th I can manage, maximum 15 I know. Because you saw that day without gaps we did, but we couldn't manage more than 15. Right. So I don't know how many are remaining also. So speak to the campus and see, right? Beforehand. Right. I think we can stop for the day. We will meet next time as the last class. I will give you the summary of all the work done. I will actually show you 2 lesson plans and get you to write one in the class. And I will show you the assignment, either flip or jigsaw. You can have a selection and I will give you all the instructions to do how to do it. So this is planned for the next week. And that's it. Okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Right, okay then. Okay, good night. Bye bye. See you.
Okay,
Bye.
madam. Thank you. Good night.
Right. Good night.